Hey, Mini Modular Guy here. So hopefully you've all seen that I submitted a new version of my Maldives Water Villa into BrickLink Designer Program Series 6. I've made a few changes since the submission for Series 5. And a reminder that if you really like this set, it could become a set that you can buy if it gets enough votes. So please do vote. So there's a number of changes I've made here. As I've said, I've made the design more compact, taken around 1,000 parts out of it. So the base is smaller, the buildings are slightly smaller as well. I've brought the pool into the building on the right hand side, and you've got some steps coming down into the ocean on the front, as you can see here. You have also got more foliage in the design, and I've brought stickers into this version as well, just to give it that little bit more character. So it's just under 3,000 parts this time. Again, if you really like this model and would like to get the hands on this yourself, please do vote in the BrickLink Designer Program Series 6. Okay, you can also get more details about this model on my own website, minimodularguy.com. There's a whole page about the new Maldives Water Villa here. It shows some of the Blender animations I'm about to talk about as well. It shows a gallery of the studio renders here as well, and down to a bit about myself as well, and a link to the voting. So, as I said, you'll have seen some of the Blender animations I've done for this. I did them on the previous series as well. I've shared them on Instagram and Facebook, and there'll be one you'll see on my main submission page too on the Bricklink website. Now, to be honest, they're not that easy to create. In the past, I followed the infamous donut tutorial from Blender Guru on YouTube to learn how to use Blender itself. But you've got that opening challenge of getting a Lego model into Blender to start with, and that's what I'm going to be covering today, because it's not that easy, as you'll see. So we're going to switch to Blender first, and you'll see here, you'll have to excuse some of the navigating around. I'm using 3 bits of different software here to show the Lego model itself of the Maldives Water Villa, and they've all got different methods of rotation, zoom in, etc. So bear with me on that. So we're in Blender here to start with, and you can see the new Maldives Water Villa here. So we can rotate around the model. This is obviously the one I've built kind of earlier and imported, and I'll show you how I've done that. It's got all the minifigures in. Just zoom out a little bit there again. And it's got all, obviously, the different buildings you can see. We can put that into render preview mode as well to get an idea of what it looks like with all the lights I've put into the model, with the sunset and the water underneath I've got in the model. And again, we can rotate that around in this view. It's rendering fairly quickly there. I'm on an M3 MacBook Pro. It is quite intensive in the Blender software to render this on the fly, and some of the animations. So some of the animations I've done, the animations I've done so far for Series 6 have probably added up to about 60, 70 hours of rendering so far. So there's quite a lot of rendering time. So that's the model in Blender. But again, it's not that easy to import straight out of Studio software, the Lego Studio software. It doesn't work straight off. So I'm going to show you how to do that through another third-party bit of software as well. First of all, while we're in Blender, I'm going to open up a blank file which has literally just got the water base. So again, if I go into render preview mode here, we'll just see that it's got that water base and got the sunset texture in. I'm not going to cover any of those in this video. But that's now a blank Blender file. So we're going to switch into Lego Studio software. And again, you'll see the model here. We can rotate around the model here. It's obviously not got any of the powerful rendering we're seeing here. You actually have to render those into or through Studio itself to get to the files. And the only animations you can kind of do in Studio are the kind of drop brick animations and turning it around. There's nothing around kind of moving the camera and everything like that. That's why I use Blender for this software. So the first challenge we've got here is to export as a particular file that we're going to import into Blender. I tried to do a few different files in the past, file types in the past. I came to the conclusion that LDR files seem to be the best option to do that. So for example, we go up to export here. We export as LDRAW. And I've got a test files directory here. Let's call it test Wednesday. It's Wednesday when I'm recording this. So we've saved a file there. We've saved it as an LDR file, LDRAW file. Now the challenge here is, I know that some of the parts haven't gone out into that because they're not supported in Studio. So I've had to use a third-party software, which I'll come on to a second, to do that middle bit of adding some of those parts beginning in. But I'll show you what happens if you now import the file we've just exported straight into Blender. So if we switch back to Blender, we've got our blank file there. I'm going to do a file import, LDraw. We're going to find the file I downloaded here, so it was Test Wednesday. It takes a little bit of time to do the import itself, but it's bringing that Lego model through the LDR file into Blender now, and it'll be sitting on top of that water background. So we can rotate the model there. Let's get it back into the middle. Zoom out a tiny bit. Now, you'll think, okay, the first glance, hey, that's worked really well, but what we've actually got is missing parts that weren't supported in the file that came out of Studio. So if I zoom in a bit here, you'll notice the textured wood bricks, the 1x4 tiles with the wooden texture, aren't actually in the file. So they haven't imported, and we can see these on the walkway there, and we can see these on this building here. If I also rotate down, you'll notice there's quite a bit of bits missing off the minifigures. Some of the faces aren't supported in the software running out to an LDR file. Some of the bodies aren't, so you've got a chef here with actually no face, no head, no arms. Sorry, he's got arms, no body. You've got the guest here with no legs, no head, no body, but the rest of the bits are here. So most of the parts have come through, but some of them haven't. Again, if I zoom out, there's a lot of parts missing on this left-hand side as well. So if we look at the two minifigures there, they've got parts missing. We've got the tiles missing here as well. We've got some of the plants that are missing here. Now, in my final version in Blender, I haven't actually been able to bring those through because they're not actually supported in the third bit of software I'm going to show as well, which is a shame. So some of my animations aren't perfect, but they give you a really good impression of what the model will look like. If you just look through here as well, you'll see that the steps of the stairs are another 1x3 textured tile, which haven't come through either on the stairs just there. So let's zoom out again and let's delete the models, and then we'll bring in a fixed version, mostly fixed version of that. So we're going to delete that hierarchy, and we are back to blank again. So we're now going to go into Studio again very quickly, again to explain that it's the same export process here. So file, export as LDraw. I won't actually do that. So you create the same file, but what we actually do is use another third bit of software called LeoCAD. LeoCAD is downloadable free off the internet. And in fact, all the three bits of software I'm using today in this video, Lego Studio, BrickLink Studio software, Blender and LeoCAD are all free, which is great. So I'm going to switch over to LeoCAD, and again, what I've got here is the one I've fixed mostly already. There's still some missing parts, but you will see that we've got most of the minifigures, or all of the minifigure parts in here. We've got textured parts here. Again, the textured tiles I've taken time to put in. So things like that, you've got to add parts in. So I'm going to close this file down, and I am going to open the one we exported in Studio, and you will see what the state of play is with that one. So it was the Test Wednesday one. So let's load that file. And if we have a closer look, what we can see here, if you look closely, is the bricks that aren't supported in the LDraw export from Studio have come through in as blocks. So you'll see one there, you'll see one there, and parts of the minifigures. Most of the parts of the minifigures have come through as blocks because those parts didn't export properly. And so LeoCAD doesn't know what to put in its place, so it's just literally put a 1x1 brick in instead. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to put the proper parts back in again in LeoCAD. I'm going to do a couple here just to show you how to do this, but mainly I'm not going to do all of them. Then we'll import into Blender and you can see that those have come through properly. So for example, there's a model here which is the pool and bar building on the right hand side. So we want to be able to look at the bricks in there that haven't come through properly. So we are going to right click on that model and open selected model, which will just show us that particular model. So obviously we've zoomed in a bit here. We'll rotate that around and we can see that this block here is not what we want. We want a 1x4 tile with that wooden texture that we've got in Studio. So what we're going to have to do first is delete that brick. So we are going to right click and do a cut. And on the menu on the right hand side of the bricks we can put in now. It might seem this takes a while, but it probably took me about, I don't know, 40 minutes to put the missing bricks back into my Maldives Water Villa model in LeoCAD ready for Blender. So we know we want a tile, we know we want a 1x4 tile. So we're going to go and find that. In fact, we know we want one with wood texture first. So let's go and find that one. So we type in wood. The color I've been using for that, I think, is medium nugget. So we need to find medium nugget on the color palette first. So we click there and we can see our tiles here. Now I believe it was this one here that I've put in Studio. So we're going to drag that into here. And it doesn't always drag in the right place, so you have to move it around a bit. Now you've got some tools here, some snap tools that are really, really useful. Up here on the top here, we've got Move Snap and Rotate Snap. So I have Move Snap X and Y set to half a stud and Z set to 1 flat. So basically we're going to be able to move it using the arrows you'll see here on the screen in those directions, and we'll be able to line it up quite easily. So for example, if I grab that yellow arrow here, I can move it twice that way to get into that gap, and then twice that way to get into that gap, and now it's in the right place. And you can just see behind there, there is another one missing just here. We've got this brick that's been put in, so I'm going to cut that one. Now we can do a Control C, Control V after clicking the original one we put in, and we'll get another one. There is actually a second one there, and you can drag it around via the arrows. So we're going to line it up just there and put it into place. If we can get that yellow arrow to move it backwards. And now we've got 2. You'll also notice there's some missing on the back there. I'm not going to put those in properly. So something else I probably won't do here is do the minifigures. They're a bit more of a challenge, and I want to give this a quick overview of this video. We could actually attempt to put a body in there, but I'll leave that for now. I may do it in another video, but what I'm trying to do here is show you that there are bits that will come in that are missing from the BrickLink Studio export, and you'll have to put those back in LeoCAD again. So I've put 2 tiles back in there. You've got all the parts that are generally available on this right hand side. So for example, we could go to the minifigures, we could add in a body. If you scroll down, we could add in a torso, and you could pick up a torso and go into this, say, chef here. We can, if we click on the chef there and we do open selected model, each time you go into another model, you'll notice at the top here on the tabs that it's opening up a new tab. Don't worry too much about that, because I'll show you what happens in a minute. But essentially we could go into, again, this model here, which opens the next layer down. We could cut that one, we could grab a body into there and put it in the right place, which happens to be there. So I have shown you how to do this. Now, that's kind of saved that new body part going in. So all I have to do is actually close the tab on that one, and you'll see it in here. Close the tab on that one, and then you'll see it in there. And so we've got that new part in. And so it's a case of going through the different parts, which, as I said, it took me about 40 minutes to do for the whole Maldives Water Villa. So it wasn't actually too bad, and we'll close that tab. And when we go to the whole model, you'll notice the tiles are in the whole model. So all we're going to do now is save this file. So we've saved that file there. It may come up with an alert on the screen that it's somebody's changed the file. It's actually you just changing the file. It doesn't do that all the time. It just does it sometimes in LeoCAD. So we've saved that file. We're going to close that. Now we'll go back to Blender. So we've got our blank file again that we had before. We're now going to import that new one that we saved. So we do import, LDraw. It was the Test Wednesday one that we altered. We'll let that import. Now hopefully you'll see now that those bricks I added in, the torso and the 2 4x1 tiles, are now in the model itself. So you will see here, if I zoom in on this part of the model here, you will see that those tiles are now in this version. If I float over to here, you'll notice that they are still missing from this version. It's because I didn't add it in the LeoCAD file. But essentially it's just going through all those parts, looking out for those one by one blocks it's put it in, removing those using the right click cut menu in LeoCAD, putting the new bricks in, aligning them in the right place, and then saving that file and importing that file into Blender. One thing I was going to do here is, obviously, if I zoom out a little bit there and get the model in the right place, if I go into camera and that view mode there and bring, so all I'm doing there is using the camera to view mode, going into camera view mode, and then rotating my model so that my camera setting is exactly what I'm seeing on the screen. I'll come out of that mode again and I will go into shading view, and you will see when that's drawn, it's obviously very dark. We've got no lights coming in from either direction on this one, so you can't really see the part. So what I thought I'd do firstly is on the right hand side, when it brings in the Lego model, it brings in two things. It brings in the model itself, which is this one here, which I'm floating over here, the Maldives Water Villa. If I actually select the hierarchy on that one, you'll see that all go red on the screen. So it's selected the whole hierarchy. What it's also brought in, which you want to delete, is the Lego ground plane. We don't want that in here. So we right click, we delete the hierarchy. So that's starting to give us a little bit of light, but we've got less light in there. So what we need to do now is pop a couple of lights in. So I'll pop a area light in first so we can really light up this area. So click anywhere in the model, Shift A for add, and light, and we're going to do an area light. So we've started to obviously get a bit of light here. If we zoom out here, you'll see that that area light is actually flat. We want to rotate that and point it at the model and lift it up. So we're going to bring the light up, and we can, it's usually sometimes better to work in this view with the actual shading going on so that you can see. We also probably want to rotate that. So we're going to rotate the view around a bit itself and go into rotate mode, grab the red item here. So I'm just going to go back up a little bit, grab the red rotate tool here and just rotate that round a bit so that we're getting light on the model now. Again, if we brought that a little bit further out, we've got it there as well. So if I zoom into that, we can start to see some lighting come into that. It's fairly basic lighting. The sunset lighting has disappeared from this model. I won't take time to put that in, but you can get an idea that I've put a light in there. You can see the water reflection. One thing I was also going to do is put one of the point lights in so you can see how I do that in these particular models. So we're going to go back out of shading view and going back to the original model view. So I put the point lights in all of my 1x1 studs that are essentially trans yellow, for example, in the Maldives Water Villa. So we are going to click on that and we're going to click Shift S because we want to get the cursor to that point first. So Shift S brings up this menu and we want the cursor to go to the selected item. So we click cursor to selected. That will take our 3D cursor to exactly that point. Now again, it's going to be Shift A because we want to add a light at that point. So we want a point light. Now that's going to add a point light there. For example, if we were accidentally clicked somewhere else and we want to, that's our point light there, for example, and it's added it over there. We've got our point light, which we can see here, but we want it in the place where that stud is. So we can do a trick there as well. So if we click on the stud again, click Shift S, and we go cursor to selected, that'll bring the cursor there. Then we click on the point light again and click Shift S again, back in here. And then you want selection to cursor, which will actually move the point light into, as you'll see there, the selection we've got. So that's usually sometimes at the top of that stud. If we move over there a bit, I usually bring it down a tiny bit. And if we go to the data property of that, we'll see it's a 10 watt light at the moment. That should probably be about enough. You might want to bring the wattage down, but because it's inside an object, it may not actually give out that much light. For example, if we go into render view here, we actually should see that one stud slightly lit up. And we can kind of see that there. If we click away from that, you can see that this stud here is slightly lit up compared to the other ones. So it's emitting some light onto other objects as well around it. So that's essentially what I wanted to show you in this video. The challenges of bringing a Lego model into Blender. As I said, as I've shown through this video, some of the parts will not come in because they won't go out in the export from Lego Studio, BrickLink Studio software. So I've had to resort to using the LeoCAD software to add those parts in and then bring that file, LDraw file, into Blender via LeoCAD itself. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's helped you. And please do vote for the new Maldives Water Villa in Series 6, the Bricklink Designer Program. And also subscribe to this YouTube channel. And also you will find me on Instagram at LegoTraymans. Thank you very much.